roughly 1 in 3 people who see a form never type a single character into it. They look at it and they just leave. These two screens do the exact same job, same booking, same information, but one of them converts and the other is where users go to die. And the difference has almost nothing to do with design taste. It's all about the strategy of what each screen asks the human brain to do. And there's nearly 80 years of research on why the one on the left doesn't work.
My name's Chris, and I've been building software over 10 years, and I have experience from startups to top companies like Microsoft, Meta, and Starbucks. I also run ScienceBasedSoftware.com, where we take the trust me bro out of app building and give you evidence-based principles that you can rely on, and then the copy-paste prompts to add it to your app. So if you think that's valuable, join the newsletter below. Go ahead and subscribe. We do this all the time. Let's get back to it.
All right, we're going to go through 3 parts. 1, what actually happens in someone's head when they hit a wall of empty fields. It's not that your users are lazy. It's something much more specific. Then 2, the paradox of choice. Why more options can make people choose nothing at all. I'll give you the real research, including what parts don't hold up, because you should know both. Then 3, the strategy that fixes all of this, and do a field by field teardown, looking at the screen to the left and the screen to the right, and what you need to do to make yours more and more like that. By the end of this video, you'll be able to open your own app, look at any form in it, and point to the exact fields that are causing you signups. So here's the thing about an empty field. It isn't a question. It's the effort that the user has to expend. So when I show you a blank input, I'm not asking for information. I'm asking for work, and an unknown amount of work, because usually you can't see the bottom of the form. You have no idea how long it's going to take. So your brain hates seeing a question mark next to the amount of effort needed in something, which leads us to the research principle of least effort. So published in 1949 by a linguist named George Zipf, this study is quoted badly as people are lazy. But what it really says is that humans, animals, and systems naturally choose a path that requires minimum expenditure of energy or work to accomplish a task. So your users aren't lazy. They're just budgeting their effort all day on all things. And your empty form just showed up asking for an unspecified withdrawal of their energy. And the path of least effort will take them away from a task like this unless you present it in a way where they get a benefit for a low amount of effort. So now let's make sure we condense the perceived amount of effort needed for that user. Any task we perform carries 2 kinds of load. It's either intrinsic or extraneous. And this comes from cognitive load theory. Intrinsic load is the difficulty actually inside the job. So someone booking a table for a restaurant, they have to specify a date. You cannot design that away. But an extraneous load is everything else. So difficulty created purely by how it is presented. And this one is entirely your fault. And today we're going to fix it. Almost every conversion problem in a form is an extraneous load issue. One of the ways we can present this information better is through choices. So if you want to fix your app today, do not have blank fields. Instead, give them choices. But now, how many choices do we present? A company called Zoco has behavioral data on 93 million form views. Roughly a third of all people who see a form never start it. And the single highest abandonment field in that entire data set is the password field. So how do we take some of this research and completely shift how we are presenting this information to users? We can start with a paradox of choice. So there was a really interesting study back in 2000 at an upscale grocery store in California where a tasting booth was set up. Some hours, this researcher put out 24 jams. Other hours, they put out 6. And what they found very interesting, the big 24 jar display was better at pulling people in. So 60% of shoppers who walked past 24 jams stopped, whereas only 40% stopped for 6 jams. Now, stopping is one thing, but we want to make money. So of those who stopped, only 3% actually bought something at the 24 jam display. But this part's super interesting. At the 6 jar display, 30% purchased a jar. So that is 50% less traffic, but 10 times better conversion. We see choice overload in a lot of apps, most relatably in Netflix. Nielsen clocked people at spending 10.5 minutes per session just deciding what to watch. And 1 in 5 gave up and watched nothing at all. That is a huge percentage. Now in retail, there is one shining example of limiting choice. and that is Trader Joe's. They carry only about 4,000 products, but the average American supermarket carries about 33,000. So Joe's is estimated to do roughly 3 times the revenue per square foot than all of these other stores with all of these choices. So now we know that choice overload happens and users can benefit from having less choice. But when and what does that mean? This is what a team in 2015 asked, and they found 4 specific conditions that predict choice overload. Number 1 is when the user is minimizing effort, not shopping around. 2, the options are hard to compare. 3, they're under time pressure. And 4, they just don't know yet what they want. This is a perfect description of a sign-up form. Nobody downloads your app to configure it. They can't tell what your options mean. They're doing this in a spare 90 seconds they have in between carpool, and they've never used your product, so they have no idea what they want. Your onboarding is your highest risk surface and your product, because all 4 of these conditions stack at once against you. So how do you fix it? I say open Spotify, or in my case, YouTube Music. I don't open this app, search for a song, listen to it, then search for another one, listen to that. Almost nobody does. I tap one of the first tiles on the screen, maybe my liked songs, super mix, something built for what I've already played as a recommendation. Netflix started learning from its initial indecisions and published a paper on their own recommender system. About 80% of hours streamed comes from recommendations now, and only 20% from the search. So that 80-20 in favor of not deciding, but going with a recommendation. So what those tiles do is convert an open-ended question into a yes or a no. And a yes or a no is mentally cheap on your user. That is your dominant option and the thing that makes choice overload disappear. We call this strategy smart default. So let's see this in action. There's a really interesting study on 401ks, and this company changed theirs from an opt-in to an automatic enrollment. And from that alone, participation went up from 37% to 86%. But a statistic that is more useful for us is that the plan had default contribution rates and a default fund. And 61% of the auto-enrolled employees stayed on both. They just accepted those smart defaults. What's interesting about this is that among the employees who had joined the old way, so they opted in themselves and chose for themselves, only about 1% picked that same combination. So did you catch that? With a smart default, user behavior changed from selecting a choice 1% of the time to 61% of the time. That default didn't just influence a decision, it was the decision. So now why would that happen? People don't read a default as a placeholder. They read it as advice. Employees describe taking the default as investment guidance. So a pre-filled value is a social signal. It says this is what people like you choose. And we as a people rate that heavily because copying everyone else has been an excellent survival strategy for most of human history. So when you pre-select 2 guests and 7 p.m. for your restaurant, you're not just saving a few taps. You're saying this is normal. You're in the right place. You don't have to think about this one. So that is smart default. And there is a real, with great power comes great responsibility dilemma here, because a default is smart when it is the option that the user would most likely have picked anyway. But it's sleazy when it's the option that only you would have picked for them because it's most advantageous for you and maybe even detrimental to the user opposed to other choices. So pre-select the most common value, not the most profitable one. All right, so now let's rebuild it. We have the same app, same job. Let's see what changes. All right, so let's jump into that before and after. I have so many of these teardowns at sciencebasedsoftware.com. You just come to the site. There's a lot of research on here, a lot of other great tools for you to leverage. But what we're going to be looking at is some of these topics. And today we looked at onboarding. So let's go ahead and click in here. We'll skip down to the interactive build. That's a lot of the before and afters. But I think you might also be interested in this copy prompt where you're able to get everything that we talked about in this video. And you can just copy and paste this prompt into your agent of choice. So Claude Code, Copilot, CLI, whichever one you use, you can copy and paste this in with your app and it will go through and kind of make some of these changes and suggestions for you. But let's jump in to this before and after. So I'm going to open this up full screen so you can see it a little bit better.
And if you want to go through this later, just click on the annotations and you're going to be able to see some good information, some of the research behind each of these things. I tried to make it really intuitive for you all to be able to come in and learn at your own pace. But for now, I'm going to be your annotations. So we have two apps here. This is going to be a running app. So on the left, you can already see that this feels much more daunting than the right. This feels pretty inviting, but we're going to get to this later. I have to come in here. These are all blank. I have to put in information and then create my account. And we talked earlier about how password is one of the biggest pitfalls when it comes to an onboarding flow. This is where a lot of users are going to fall off. So we don't want to face the user with this in the beginning, but here we are in the before. So we created our account and then we're faced with a lot of different options. And we also talked about how taxing it is for the brain when they don't know what they want with an app to also now go in and be faced with all of these options. It's really difficult for me to come in and think of exactly like what is Base Builder? Why would I know that I'm just downloading the app? So this is very confusing. I feel like maybe I'm not ready for this. Hybrid flex? What does that mean? So I don't want to get into this, and it'll just mostly make me nervous and make me drop out of the onboarding flow. So not a good idea to have all these 12 options available. Very overwhelming. A reminder back to the jam test where you have the 24 jams versus the 6. This is not going to get us going there. Then we have some of these input fields. So I have to go in and I have to put in how many miles I want to run per week. And this is something that I have to think about and put in instead of having some of the most common options available there and having that editable. So the more open fields we have, the more brain tax we have. And the more brain tax we have, the more that principle of least effort will come in and will make us move away from this path into something else because it's taking too much from us. How did you hear about us? This isn't something that I need to get going on this. So putting something like this here is a little difficult for me to then feel like I'm going to get value. I feel like I'm still doing things for the app, not really getting to the value that I need. This would be better put as a pop-up after the user has done maybe 1 run or 3 runs, something like that. Okay, now allowing notifications. This is another thing that's a little bit taxing as well. And now we're here. It is still a blank field. This is completely blank. It feels like a little bit more of an upstart. So that is the before. And as you can see, that isn't probably that unusual to what you usually go through when you are onboarding into an app. But I challenge you to look to the right now, and we're going to go through this application and you can kind of see some of those differences. So right off the bat, I am not asking for a lot of effort. I'm asking for you just to start, and I'm already telling you that we only have 3 quick questions and you don't need an account in order for you to get value from this. So that is such a powerful beginning statement because now I don't have that fear of starting the same way because I don't feel like I'm going to get trapped. So let me just go ahead and start. And you can see here we have 3 options: run my first 5K, get more consistent, or clear my head, kind of use it for the mental aspect of it. And these are maybe the most common things that people use this application for. And now I'm able to select one and get going through the flow. Instead of having to think about this and fill in a free form, this is much easier to get me continuing. So I get consistent, and then which days work best. So I'm recommended to run Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. That seems reasonable. I don't really have to think about my whole schedule and everything. I kind of go with his recommendation. If I truly want to switch some things up, maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's much easier for me to do that with this kind of selectable interface than maybe most would be. And then what time do you usually have free? So instead of giving me all the hours in the day and everything that I could do, all the different time increments and everything, it just gives me morning, afternoon, and evening. Around 7, around 12, around 6:30. Very easy, very welcoming. And I can just select one of these. I'd like to run in the morning. That's easy. And now we can see I already have some value from this. I have a whole week 1 plan. So I can get started without even needing to sign into this application yet. That makes me much more likely to want to use this software because of the law of reciprocity when it comes to humans. So once we get something, we want to give something. That's how we work. So now this app has given me something. It's given me this 1 week plan. I am much more likely to now have to save with Google and continue through using this app. I can also just start. That's when that reminder comes in. So that reminder for 7 a.m. happens when I actually would need it, when I'm actually trying to start this plan instead of trying to get everything front loaded and out of the way. So I'll go ahead and have it remind me. And now I'm done. I'm able to do my runs. I'm able to be signed in. I'm able to use this application fully, but it felt a lot better and it felt like more of a give and take with the software instead of a mostly take until I get to a blank screen where I still have to continue giving it some of my effort. So I hope you can see how great things can be when you just have a little bit of intention and a little bit of human psychology behind some of the decisions that you make. And this isn't hard. Once you learn it, you're able to now apply it to any app that you build, any software that you're putting together. And that's what I hope I'm able to give to you all. If you enjoyed this video, I do this all the time in our newsletter. If you haven't joined by today, you have missed our dashboarding newsletter, you have missed our onboarding newsletter. I want you to join now so that you don't miss any other ones in the future, and you can get up to date on all of this great content and be able to just use these copy paste prompts as you need them in your application. So thank you so much for spending your time with me. I know you could be anywhere right now, but you're choosing to learn. I appreciate you. Please let me know in the comments below what was most helpful for you so I can continue putting that kind of content for other people in the future. Thank you so much. Catch you in the next one.